Hey, listener, welcome to episode number 110 of Listen Up. Today, I have such a special treat for you. My guest is Mario Murgado, who is the president and CEO of Murgado Automotive Group, one of the largest dealership groups in the country. Mario is an icon, both in the car industry and in Miami. But to me, he is so much more. He is the very first person I ever sold to back when I was 21, before law school, before this podcast, before any of this. He believed in me from the very beginning, and he has been on my life path ever since. I'll tell you that whole story inside the episode, but right now I want to share with you why this episode matters for you. If you have ever felt like you are behind, like you should have figured things out by now, like the people who build remarkable lives somehow do it faster or easier than you, then this conversation is going to reframe that narrative. Mario came to this country from Cuba all alone 5 days before his 4th birthday. He spent more than a decade learning his craft before he ever owned anything. What looks like overnight success was actually 20 years of showing up with discipline, one decision at a time. You're going to hear today what it really takes to build something that lasts, how to lead people by putting them first, how to stay present for the ones you love, even when you can't be physically present all the time, and how a single life lived on purpose becomes a legacy. I also have a little bit of synchronicity for you. Mario is from my father's era, and we are in June, the month we honor fathers, the month my very own father passed away. So it feels like no coincidence that this is the month and the moment that Mario's wisdom gets to reach you. So tune in and get ready for this one. I am so excited to share with you my friend and a mentor, Mario Murgado. Okay, so welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome to this beautiful space. It's such a privilege for me to interview you. For you who are listening, Mario and I go way back. I don't know if you remember.
Of course I do.
How we started. But I walked into your office. I was 21 years old, and you were the very first person that I ever pitched a grant for Viernes Culturales, which was an event that was being hosted here in Miami. And they had given me the task of selling sponsorships. And they said, you need to go to Brickle Mortars and sell a sponsorship. And I walked in and I was so nervous. And my father drove me to the interview, and he waited in the car outside. And you and I sat down and I pitched to you, and you said yes on the spot. Like, you didn't give me a hard time at all. And then you were like, do you want to come sell here?
I saw, listen, when I see talent, I go after talent.
You tried to get me to work for you. And I was like, no, I'm going to law school. I'm going to law school. I'm going back to school. I'm not gonna be doing this for a living. So, but you and I stayed in touch all these years, and now since then it's been 20 years.
Yeah.
So I'll never forget the first time that I ever wrote I don't even know how you got onto my email list, to be honest with you, but I remember I wrote a blog, and you wrote back to me. And I had to double take, look 3 times, is that really Mario Murgado that's writing me an email? I was so amazed by the fact that you were reading my emails. And I have to ask, what inspired you to read? What is it about my work that you read?
First of all, you take the time to write. Writing is an art. Writing is something that we sometimes have tended to walk away from it because we think we can either text quickly, we think we can either send a quick message, we can send a voicemail, and communication is the essence of life. For humanity, communication is essential. And when you write, it's the written word, and it lasts forever. I always tell my sons, I remember when they were going to college, Mario today, Jr. is 37 years old, Michael's 34, both married, grandchildren, doing great in life. But I remember when he was in school and he joined the Republican Party in Milwaukee, I said, there's a lot more of the other side there. I said, so, and then when he would write a blog or write something, I said, don't forget you have my name. So make sure your grammar's right, your spelling's right. and set everything up right. And I said that to him because today, when I write, if I write an email, if I write a text, it can be forwarded anywhere. It can be read by millions of people. So it's important. And I think most people want to do it in a short way. And I think it's a perfect way to express your thought, the thought of the day, the thought of the week. And it kind of also gives insights to what you're doing, where you're going, where your mind is right now. And I think it's important. And you do a wonderful job of articulating, of expressing a feeling, a moment, a direction.
I'm always so grateful for your responses. I feel like we're pen pals. Every time I receive a response from you each week, they're so thoughtful and they're so reflective. So much so that I wanted to bring you on the podcast because, you are a very well-known, established businessman. You're a mogul by all
thank you.
by all stretches of the imagination, and you have built an empire with your car business. And I think it speaks volumes of you that you take the time to read work about living with intention, to respond, to give these thoughtful responses, and to actually integrate it into your life, which is actually the reason why I invited you to be here today. Hey, I'm going to take a quick pause from the episode to share this with you. As an inspirational storyteller, I don't only love to speak wisdom into your heart, I also love to write to you. So every Sacred Sunday, I send a love letter to my readers. It is called the Moment of Clarity newsletter, and it is where I share stories and reflections that don't always make it onto the podcast. It's also how I live with intention in real time. I am writing to you fresh and raw every single week. So if you want that kind of wisdom in your inbox every Sunday, go to carolinedepasada.com/love letter and sign up. I will see you there. But before we talk about intention, I kind of want to take you back a little bit because you're not originally from the United States. You're an immigrant.
Yes, I am.
So I'd like to hear a little bit about your journey. I've read a lot about you, and I know that you came here when you were 4 years old. And I read that you came here all by yourself. Tell me a little bit about what that, do you even remember? Do you remember at 4 years old?
Those are things you never forget. Those are things you never forget. So in Cuba, every day I would walk with my father. Whenever anyone was solicited to be able to leave, he would go visit them. So if your parents were solicited, he would go visit your parents, and he would ask, what did they ask for? What documents they have? And he went into our living room. And by the way, our living room was smaller than this dining area. So in the living room, he would have 4 files, and every copy of every document that someone said they asked, he would have. So what happened is when they came to us on an afternoon, never forget, it's like 2:00 in the afternoon. They asked, I said, Mario can leave. My mom can leave. My sister couldn't leave. My father couldn't leave. Well, my sister's 6 months old. What mother can leave that? But my mother and my father were like this, and it said, not a problem. And so at 5:30, we're on our way to the airport. At 5:00, 6:00, there's a flight. And I'm giving you the times as more or less as an average how I felt in that afternoon. And I was very blessed to have 2 individuals that are still today alive and are very thoughtful. And they took care of me. And then my mom got here fairly quickly, months after that. And then my father about a year and a half after that.
Wow.
So
did you ever feel abandoned?
I had it. First of all, my father's name is Bienvenido. My mother's name is America. So welcome to America is kind of the way. So let's start with that. I will tell you that no, I've been blessed many times over with two great parents. And I was blessed that we always had a great relationship, and all throughout my life. As hard as he was, I think he taught me great lessons that he's a father, he's not a friend. And I've used that all my life also with both my sons. But what was made powerful about that was really whenever you're on a plane for 30 minutes or whatever, and you have time that you don't know, and it's different than anything you've done in your life, you start asking yourself questions. What did I do wrong? So it was not about that I was abandoned. Did I do something wrong?
You thought that at 4?
Sure. Yeah. You always think like that because 4 years old is a formidable time in your life where you're getting 4 or 5. Today, kids are going to school at 3 years old and vice versa. But at that time, when anything that comes at you that's an adversity, or at least you would know it's an adversity. I didn't know what the word adversity was at that time. That would be, I think, a natural thing, and that's how I felt. Um, but over time, that went away, and then I met wonderful people. So early on in my life, there, I had met someone who was in the Navy, and that person in the Navy said lighthouses have always been used to bring men home and Navy sailors home, and a lighthouse will bring your father home. And that's my logo still today. It's always been my lighthouse. So if I play golf on my golf ball is there. If I have a hat on, it has a lighthouse. If you go to one of the offices, it has a bunch of different lighthouses throughout. If you go to certain pictures, I use a lighthouse. So it's always been my personal logo because a lighthouse is that. WQBA, if you remember that, they would give the names every day. They would read a list. And I'm saying, did you remember? You know, you're too much younger. But they would have a list that they would read in the morning and a list that they would read in the afternoon. And the minute they said my father's name, I was the first one that heard my father's name. I was the first one that understood that. So those are things that never leave you in your life, but they make you and they help you. And what I would tell you that I think it's an advantage. I think I grew up fast. I think la niñez was kind of gone. My youth was kind of disappeared because you have to grow up. You see that very quickly. From here, we went to Chicago. In Chicago, that beginning was tough. You can choose in your life to let something mark you, stop you, or make such an impact that's bad that you never get away from that, or you can choose to let it fall. I went to a place that I lived in, which was the projects. The projects were Cabrini Green. These projects were so bad that they tore them down afterwards. That's how bad they were. And those projects, I remember living there. God, it must have been 4 months. I remember going to a school, which is every day was a struggle for different reasons. And we'll leave it at that. But at that moment, I remember moving out to a place called Kedzie North. Again, people tell me, Mario, that's not really a great place. But it was so much better than where I was at. There was a show called The Jeffersons. We're moving on up. Yes. I have moved on up. Wow. That's how I always felt about that. And then from there, I was blessed to have many things. So I went to a school that I was in awe. What was the school? It was St. John's in downtown Chicago. What was special about it? Going to mass every morning, just learning. As you're growing up in the first grade, second grade, guess who I have? I have the Calvary behind me.
And at this point, you were with your two parents.
Both parents.
Both your parents.
Yeah, I was 6 years old, 7 years old now in first and second grade, and going there. And then later on, let me give you another mentor in life there. From there, every day in the afternoon, my mother wasn't worried about where I was at, or my father wasn't worried where I was at. You know where I was at? If it was a summertime, I was in Wrigley Field, because old man Wrigley, the owner of the Cubs, would open up the stadium to all kids for free after 5 2/3 innings, for free. So I sat at more first base, third base, home base box seats, because those were day games that started at 1:15, at roughly around 3 o'clock, 2:40, 2:30. They were opening it up because the game was halfway. The kids would get in, and there was only 2 rules: be a gentleman. What a great lesson to teach kids at a very young age, and be respectful to your elders. What another great lesson. So those 2 lessons were very special.
And
now
you got to meet old Wrigley himself?
Everyone got to meet him, but because let me share with you, within there, first of all, I got to meet great ushers. The ushers are the ones that are sitting you down, relax. Right. These are all retired guys that are from, let's say the youngest is maybe 65 years old, let's say to 70 some years old. But you know what that was at that time? Those were radio guys, because they didn't watch TV. And radio guys are the best speakers. Yes. The way they can tell you a story, they paint the image for you in such a beautiful way with their words. So I was sometimes mesmerized like this as a kid, sitting down on a chair where I was there to the game, but I didn't even know the score, or I didn't know what was happening, because I was being more mesmerized by these stories that they were giving. But what else was that at the end of the day, the man would walk out. So my first impressions of someone successful was dress well. Old man really would be in a suit at a baseball game, white shirt, either a red tie or a blue tie every day. Those are the 2 colors he ever had. I never saw him in anything but a dark navy or a black. That never saw him in gray, never saw him in brown, never saw him in just those 2 colors. Very pristine. Mm-hmm. And they said to me, I kind of associated success with looking that part. Mm-hmm. And then he would come down And at the end of the game, you're trying to get signatures, you're trying to get autographs, and he would always say, "Who do you want?" And in those days, Ernie Banks, Billy Williams, Don Kessinger, Manny Trillo, you name it. And when you would say that, he would call him up and let you have autographs, and then no one leaves. So the guy signing, no one leaves. All the kids get all the signature. What a great gesture! What a great way to build a fan base.
Well, something I hear when you say that is he demystified access to people with significance and wealth and
Sure.
influence.
Yeah.
By exposing you to them, there's a demystification process, because oftentimes we grow up thinking that those people are separate from us. We're not allowed to talk to them or meet them. But here you are as a kid, and he's a phone call away. That must have done something to your psyche.
Yeah, well, I've never thought about it that way. But I've always felt that we're all kind of equal, and I've always felt I've never had any concern with anyone that has either more wealth, more knowledge, more anything. I always said, "Gee, let me appreciate that person. Let me learn from that person."
But I bet if you think back,
No, it could be. It could be very
maybe
much
there's
that
a
he.
reason, because that was
No,
you were given that exposure so early on.
life is a wonderful jigsaw puzzle, and I'm sure that he put pieces in my puzzle that allowed me to go down a different path, a different road, to think differently. Certainly, I would tell you just the manner of his exercise of opening it up for kids. Later on, when you study and you go back and check numbers, the Cubs had not won for over 100 years, but guess what? They had the second highest fan base in the entire baseball league,
Right.
only second to the Yankees.
Right.
And it's a team that's followed. They played in those days. It was Catalina, where they would do their spring season, and then later on they moved to Arizona. And again, a fan base that would follow them everywhere.
Wow. And so you considered him to be one of your mentors.
One of many mentors. One of many mentors in life. I have more mentors I never knew they were mentoring me, because as you read books, you pick this person, you take a look at, let's say another one, John Wooden, another great coach of the UCLA team. I mean, there's so many lessons that he had. There's so many things. His pyramid, the way he would teach people, the things he would do. The first thing he would do with you get an Abdul-Jabbar, who's an incredible superstar in college, and then becomes an incredible superstar later in the NBA. And the first thing he does is how to put your socks on.
Yeah.
Why do you teach how to put your socks on? Because you can't afford to have a blister when you're playing.
Yes.
So let's make sure
I just heard that story.
Let's make sure this is perfectly right. So it's this. So those are things. So what does that mean for you in your life? Well, let's build the right foundation. With the right foundation, we can build a skyscraper. With the wrong foundation, we can't go beyond the first floor. It'll collapse.
So you've been in personal growth your whole life. You've been fascinated by
Yeah.
the concept of personal growth.
So I would tell you, I call it perpetual improvement. And perpetual improvement comes where I think we all want to learn. And I think we're all have to be actively looking to learn and seeking knowledge. And you find it everywhere, where you least expect it there. And then going back and circling back where, why I might write to you, I think it's important for you, for me, for everyone to be paying it forward on a consistent basis. When something good happens, let's celebrate it. When someone does something good, enjoy it. And when someone says it's good, let them know it too.
That's so beautiful. So how did you it sounds that you grew up poor, right? Because
but rich with love.
Rich with love. And how do you get to the success that you have had in your life today? Because I mean, you own how many dealerships is it now?
So I'll say that JP Morgan Chase and Mercedes-Benz Financial own them. I take care of them for them. How's that? That's like the mortgage on a house.
That's right. Well, actually, I just listened to a speech given by John Maxwell.
Oh, great guy also.
Great guy. And he said something that really impacted me. He said, one of the principles from the story of the Good Samaritan in the Bible is, what is mine is not mine. I am only here to manage it. So I think that's a very appropriate thing. Whether JP Morgan owns it or you own it is irrelevant, because what is ours is not ours anyway. We're just here to steward.
Hopefully to be great stewards of it for the next generation.
Right. So, but in theory, how many dealerships do you manage?
So we have 32.
32. That is incredibly significant.
It is. Look, I've been blessed in that. I've been blessed to be I tell folks all the time, I said, there is no secret to how to do it. The first thing that I would tell you, and the first word that would set the stage for everything, is discipline.
What kind of discipline?
tremendous discipline in everything. Discipline in how you live, discipline in how you work, discipline in how you're on time, discipline about how you plan, discipline how you execute. You cannot execute well without discipline. So execution will never happen. You can plan all you want, but it means nothing if you can't.
Was there ever a time in your life that you didn't have discipline? Like, did you have to learn that lesson through hard knocks, or were you just born with discipline?
One of the gifts that I have, and I think it was my father who always challenged me with that, was a couple, but one was conscious. So, listen, I'm not here. I got to go to work. You got to take care of yourself, or then you got to take care of your sister at a very young age. And even though I have my grandmother there, you got to make decisions. And when you put the onus on the individual, and you tell the individual that you have to use your conscience. So you decide for yourself, is that good or bad? You analyze it if it's good or bad. And I was taught how to analyze
You were taught to be self-driven.
Pretty much self-driven, but analyze was really important because the decisions I made were all based on an analysis I did. What's the analysis? Is this good for me or is this bad for me? Will this help me or will this hurt me? Is this good for the family or is it bad for the family? Is it good for my sister? Is it good for school? All those things. The next thing, never miss a day of school. What did that say? That you can persevere through anything. Because we all have colds. We all have fevers. We all don't feel good. We all get tired. We have bad days. We all have all these things. But stay committed to this. Why? Because that's your future. And if you put your future in this and you commit to this, you'll do better. You'll get a better education. You'll learn more. You'll develop more. All these things. Within that, I wasn't the smartest. I wasn't the brightest. But if I worked hard, I could do like the smartest or the brightest. Make relations with the teachers. So I've always had great relations. There's so many teachers that influenced my life. So many teachers that played. There was a Mr. Cams that, from a discipline standpoint, he was a Marine. So you couldn't be more disciplined than that. That's how I felt. And in his class and how he did things and how he taught you. But guess what? He exposed me to go beyond the book, go learn more. So the book only said 3 pages of something. Go to the library and read more. And I fell in love with reading. My father would say to me, you can be poor, but you can be rich by going through books and travel the world if you want. You can learn anything you want. And that was a very true thing. And I started reading the paper at a very young age, 7 years old, second grade. It's very hard to read the paper. But by the time I was in 5th grade, I fly through the paper. So I can communicate with you as an adult, and I can talk about, what's happening local, what's happening in the world, what's happening in the United States, what's happening in the economy, what's happening in this, and all those things come together because you have the discipline to go learn, you have the discipline to go read it, and then you have the discipline to understand it. And then there's other books. Let's say a very famous book many, many years ago, Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And
that's like a Bible.
It is. and I tell people, read it about 10 times.
Yeah.
Read it about 10 times. Every single time, I promise you'll pick up something that you forgot.
I have a funny story about that. My father used to listen to the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People on audio cassette. And I was 7 years old, and I would get in the car. My parents were divorced, so he'd pick me up to take me. So we spent a lot of time in the car, right? Because we didn't have a relationship. He wasn't home all the time. So he'd make me listen to it in the car. And I was 7 years old, and I would find it boring, and he didn't care. So he would make me listen to the whole thing. I listened to the whole entire thing. And when I was 12, I saw Stephen Covey speak in live, and my father was there, and he was friends with him at the time, and they were doing work together. So he says, Caroline, come here. I want you to meet Stephen, or Dr. Covey at the time. I want you to meet Dr. Covey. And I come, and I shook his hand. I said, oh, my father made me listen to your audio cassettes when I was 7 years old. And the guy says to me, oh, really? And what did you think? And I'm 12, and I look at him and I said, oh, I thought they were the most boring thing I'd ever heard in my entire life.
And you know what? That showed how sincere you were, how genuine you were, because that's what you would expect a 12-year-old to say.
My father's face goes blank. I see him changing in front of me, and I look at him and I said, but you were much better today in life.
You saved it.
And he looks at me and he says, you know what? My wife says the same thing. So after that, he used to use that as a story on his main stage speeches of what I had told him and about his wife. And it became a whole thing. But I never read that book again until COVID hit in 2020. And when everything shut down and I had the bandwidth and the time to just to do more of personal growth, I reread the book. And I was, at that time, I was already doing a lot of teaching. I was already doing a lot of personal development work and coaching. And when I'm reading the book, I'm listening to it. I thought, oh my God, I say so many of the same things. And then I realized I must have
Absorbed.
absorbed it like a sponge, because I was, there were some things I was saying verbatim and I didn't remember off the top of my head, but they were in my soul. So reading it again really changed things for me. And ever since then, now I read it often. I've just made it part of my work.
Good. Good.
So
And I'm sure, seek to understand so you can be understood for
that's
you will
right.
be very important. See the end as you want to see it. That's really important to me. And whenever you have a problem, you go there and you reverse engineer it backwards.
Yeah. I love everything you've said. You've grew up with discipline. You grew up knowing to dress for success. You grew up with mentors. But how do you go from being an employee to being an entrepreneur with the amount of responsibility? I mean, you are responsible for so many people's livelihoods, for so much work. I mean, that requires a certain level of capacity to be able to do as much as you do and be a leader for as many people as you are. How did that happen? Do you think that happened organically or intentionally?
It's a combination of all. I didn't really set out first that I was going to go own a dealership. What I set out to do was be the very best at everything that I did. So when I started at Bremen, which is where I had my first opportunity, I set out to be the best salesperson. And what are the things that make a good salesperson? What are the qualities that it make? How do you develop relationships? And I have to tell you that my business has been a wonderful business in the sense that great friends that I've developed there, great lifetime friends that I've gotten out there. I've met the nicest people, the greatest people. And people do business with people they like and they trust.
Mm.
And if you do that good and you care about people and you put them first in everything you're doing, the sales will come and you'll do very well. From there, management. I passed on management 5 different times
Why?
because I didn't like the surroundings of where I was around, and I didn't think highly of them. I always thought that in our business, we sometimes promote someone because you're a good salesperson, you should be a good manager. And it's just the opposite. The qualities to be a manager is quite different than to be a salesperson.
Wow.
So what you want to do is create the basis and the qualities of what you want. And that starts by setting out first, what's the expectation I want out of a manager? What are the things that I think they need to be able to do? How do they have to do that? How do they grow people? How do they recruit people? How do they train people? What's their day? A day in their life? How do they prepare for that? How do they plan? Very much like a teacher would always make a planner, and Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So if they were off or they were sick, a substitute would walk in and take a look at it. So you need to be able to, how do I run this and how do I develop this in a way that if I'm not here, it goes forward. Some people want to run a business that it's all about me.
Mm.
I run quite different. I don't want it to be about me.
Mm.
I want to run it about you. And my success and the secret recipe for us is very simple. I never win until you win. So if I help you be successful, I'll be successful. And I tell our people from there, you have to do it with the rest. So if you're a general manager, I want to make you hugely successful. And if you're a general manager, your job is to make every manager under you hugely and widely successful.
And define what hugely successful means.
Sure.
What does that mean?
Seeing everyone prosper, seeing the company prosper. And then you measure them by different KPIs. Some are your personal KPIs you create. Some are KPIs that the manufacturer gives you because you have to do good to make the manufacturer happy because that's your supplier. That's where you get the cars. That's who you represent. And then the other KPI is I'm saying what most people don't have in their life, personal KPIs. And I always said to them, why would you not want to have that? The first person you should have and you should take care of is you. You can't take care of anyone else.
So you said that you passed up on this opportunity to be a manager
Many times, 5 times.
5 times.
Because the people that were around me, I didn't respect them the way they as managers. I didn't think they had the qualities to manage. And I said, I don't think it would help me. And I think I would be someone that would be fighting their systems. So I said, leave me alone. Let me be a salesperson. Let me produce for you. Let me generate for you, and I'll be fine. So I did my own little business within a business.
So here's a question. At that time, when you were passing up the managerial position, were you already implementing your own personal KPIs?
All the time. I've always done it. Always done it. So you do it too. You didn't know it, but when you're taking tests in school, you already have, hey, how do I want it? What do I want? Do I want to get an A or do I want to have a B? When you start the year or when you start the semester or when you start the quarter, you have 4.0. You have all A's.
So for my listener, if you don't know what a KPI is, it's a key performance indicator,
Mm-hmm.
which is basically creating data that tells you if you are on track or not on track. It's a measurement.
It's a measurement. When you start in school, you have an A day one. It's yours to keep or yours to give up.
Mm-hmm.
You have a 4.0 day one.
Right.
Every kid. So you work hard to keep that. Same thing in business. When you start your day, what are the things that are going to make it? You know the actions and the activities that are required to have success. If I want to have an appointment because I close out of every 3 persons, 1 person, then I got to go out there and get every day 3 appointments. Plan my day. If 3 appointments come in, this is how I do it. And vice versa, and I can give you the limits of them.
So at some point you did end up becoming a manager. And after that, what was the jump to becoming an owner?
The first thing that I did is when I became a manager, I wanted to be a student of it. I wanted to work different seats. I wanted to work different chairs. I wanted to learn. And I tell folks, I said, sometimes in life you take a step back. When I took a step back to be a manager, I went down in income considerably. But when I went to school, I paid for school. Now I'm getting taught, I'm learning, and I'm getting paid. So when I did that, I started in sales, I started in F&I, and I worked all the chairs. And then becoming a sales manager, a lead sales manager, a finance director, a general sales manager, and a general manager. As you do those things, I wanted to get involved in service. Let me learn about what service. Let me see what the service advisors. Let me go get there in the morning so I can greet customers that are walking in. You learn from everyone. Everyone. No one that comes in with a card to get service is kind of happy. They didn't wake up in the morning, gee, I want to go to service department. So it's because they have a problem. So how do you make their life easier? What makes it easier when they walk in? What makes them happier when they walk in? How can I attend them in a better way? And I always said, first thing, it starts with a smile. Welcome. I'm so happy to see you. What can I do for you today? It's really that simple. And some of them are kind of shocked and their whole attitude changes when they're going to tell you the problem, or they're upset about this and they tell you, hey, here's a problem. I understand. Let me go look at it. Let me see how quickly we can go take care of that for you, and I'll get you the answers. Now, they give you an opportunity. And if you do that, you develop those relationships. And I always tell people, I said, sales sells it the first time, service sells it to you second, third, and fourth after. That's where the relation is really built for a customer and retention. And in our business, as I learned those things, I wanted to work it. And then I worked for 19 and a half years. I had the chance to be promoted.
How many years?
19 and a half years.
Before you became an owner of a car dealership?
Yeah, I worked for Braman. I worked for Braman 19 and a half years. Very proud. I worked for an icon. I worked for a titan in the industry that I learned a lot from, that I saw a lot, and that gave me the privilege to operate his business, to grow his business, to learn in his business, to educate myself in his business. So I'm grateful for all those things. And
I'm currently reading a book called Mastery by Robert Greene. And one of the things that Robert Greene says is, first you pick a life craft that you have decided you want to master this life craft. And then you get a mentor and you use these mentors. But he also says you need a period of apprenticeship. And in order to really master something, an apprenticeship is no less than 10 years. And as I'm listening to you, I would bet that people look at your story and I know it happened to me, is looking at you and I just feel like you've always owned car dealerships, right? Nobody ever talks about the 19 and a half years that you were working for someone, learning the craft, learning to become the kind of person who could purchase dealerships and take on that. You were in an apprenticeship and you were mastering this particular business.
And with him, I had the opportunity to be a general manager of a great store that we grew. And then I had the opportunity to be a general manager of another group. And then eventually I had a big part of the company. And by doing that, I later became the president of the company. Later on became president and CEO of Braman Imports, and vice versa, gave me all that opportunity. I also became a managing partner with him. So he sold me a piece of that business, and I had a piece, participated with him. And I had another store in Palm Beaches. So I had a BMW, Porsche, Audi, Rolls-Royce, Bentley there, which gave me other exposures as well. Had Honda. And then from eventually, when I left, I was able to buy a store in Miami. The worst store at that time. It was a Brickell. It was a store that was selling 16 Hondas only. It was selling 6 Pontiacs and GMCs a month and 16 used cars. That campus today does over 10,000 cars a year. So, and at the end of the day, it's never you. It's always the people. And if you focus on the people that you have, and you focus on the teams, and you make them better, I have great pride in our team. I have great pride in those that have left also to become general managers in other stores, have grown to other stores, because it's important. And through it all, we've had, imagine all the things. I started in 2001 when I had that store. We had 9/11 hit. That was a setback. You've had the .coms. You have all these things that you've gone through in your life. And at each one, you learn from it and you learn how to pivot. I will tell you that fast forward, let's say 2009, when we had the economic recession that we had, I learned quickly that we shouldn't get rid of our people. So we'll take the losses, we'll take the hits, we'll hunker down, but let's not lose anyone. And then when COVID came, I was more prepared without having any idea what was going to happen. Because I could sit here today, wow, I had no idea. I was surprised, to be honest. So when COVID hit, guess what? We did not put a sabbatical on anyone. We did not lay off anyone. And I told people, I said, you win games by offense. You don't win it by defense. And the offense is you.
I have two thoughts. One is one of the principles that I govern my life by is you're always in training for something bigger. And I think 2009 was you just said it right now. It was training you for 2020, right? So
I would think so, yeah.
The experience of going through 2009 and not getting rid of your people prepared you for the uncertainty that you were going to face in 2020. And you could say, well, my priority is not to give up, to let go of my people. And I've done it once before. I know that I can, even with this uncertainty, I can do it again. So I think that's a really important one. But the second thing that I want to point out, and I think this is a kind of I love sharing with people behind the scenes because you could sit here and talk about everything, but when you know someone and you can see the way that they live their lives, I think it's really a very insightful. I remember sending you an email a couple of months ago, or you sent me an email. It was around Christmas time, and you sent me an email regarding one of my post, and I wrote back to you and I said, well, I hope you have, are you traveling for the holidays? Are you taking a vacation? And your response was, no, I don't travel for the holidays. I'll be here. It's like our busiest time. And then you said, I don't feel right leaving my people during the holidays, because if I expect them to work, then I want them to know that I'm going to be here with them.
That's exactly right.
I was so moved by that email because I thought, you have earned your right to be able to take a vacation, right? There's a reason why you're the owner and not the employee. And at some point you could say, well, this is the reason I've created this system.
Can I stop you right there a second? How did I get to become an owner? It's the people. Never forget that. The star in our store, in our business, it's the cars. Never forget that. After the cars, it's our people. You didn't come to me if you didn't like the brand or have an indication of the brand. You didn't come to me if I didn't have the right people. So that's why I've never done that. And I think people realize when you are supportive in times that when they could be down. I think the holidays are incredible, the most beautiful times of the year. But I think they're also very much pressure for many people and for different situations. So you never know how to affect anyone. But if I'm there next to you and you happen to have a problem or you happen to want to talk, I'm there.
I found that to be so fascinating. And that's not a story you share.
No.
That's just something, if I didn't ask you the question, what are you doing for the holidays? I wouldn't have known. Yeah. And I pressed you on it. I'm like, what do you mean you're not traveling for the holidays?
That's right.
I wanted more information. I'm like, tell me more. I want to know more. Yeah. So I just think that speaks volumes of you as a leader. The fact that you are willing to be a team player, regardless of the level that the level of success you've amassed.
Look, I think communicating with them, talking to them, I think is important. I think communication is a key. I write almost a daily, reflection for everyone on a daily basis. Yeah. And
I've never received one of those.
No, I send it to them on it because it's normally, what's stopping you, what's hindering you. Today was about ego. ego could hurt you in a very bad way. So how do you control it? How do you do things? And that's what I try to do on a consistent basis. I also believe that you're an example. As you go up, everyone's watching you, every move, more than you even have an idea. So you want to be able to set that tempo, that tone, and you also can inspire a lot of change in people. And you also can show them different ways. I'm so proud of so many people that have come and worked for us that are immigrants, just like myself, and with one finger in front, one finger in the back. And I said, and here, if you do the right things, you don't need anything except a pen, be patient, and learn. And you can change your life. And in 3 years, you can change your life further, because if you sell today 10 cars on it and you do a good job and you do it for 3 years, after 36 months and they have a lease, they'll come back and they'll buy another car. You keep on doing that. If you sold 10 cars, you got 5 people at least that'll come back and buy from you again. So you've already increased. You're already ahead, but you have to be consistent. You have to make sure you're in touch with them. You have to have a relationship. You have to help them. You have to be here when they want to be here. I always tell you, I said, if I called you and you're telling Mario, I'm coming to service tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock in the morning, I try to be there at 8 o'clock in the morning to greet you myself. And I try to have other people that might tell me, because after you sell a lot of cars, there's more people the same day that are coming. But that says a lot. You would never expect a salesperson to be on the service drive to meet you at 8 o'clock in the morning. And then, hi, how are you? Let me introduce you to Sal here. Sal's my service advisor that I always work with. He'll take excellent care of you.
So Mario, you have had all the success in your life, but I want to switch you over to your personal life, because you said you have 2 sons. And tell me a little bit about how you've been able to maintain those personal KPIs that you were talking about and not sacrifice, or I don't know much about your home life. So
happy to share it.
I'm assuming that you haven't sacrificed your home life, but how have you been able to integrate a healthy, wholesome personal life while dedicating this much time, like to the point that you don't take vacation on the holidays, right?
Okay. So that's a great thing. So the first thing I have to pay tribute to my wife. So
how many years have you been married?
43.
Wow.
So it's I have to tell you that, our boys are ours, but she plays a major significant role of every day, anything that they ever needed, whether it be to take to school, whether it be to pick up, whether it be go to sports, was always there.
Did you prioritize being there for sports and things like that?
So you prioritize as you get older. You didn't prioritize as you're earlier. So you learn that. You learn that. And I miss things. But she was always a good anchor to say, you got to go to this, or you got to go to that, or you got to be at this. And sometimes I get there late. And even though they tell you it's okay, it's not okay. So I try to make things, but I didn't make everything. And I'm blessed with 2 incredible sons. And I apologize to them. And I'll do it here live with you that I'm sorry that I missed certain things. I was focused on them, but focused to give them a better life and to do better things. And that requires work. To be successful, time has to be there. You can't be a watchkeeper. You can have a watch on, you can look at your watch all the time, but you can't be a timekeeper. And to be successful, you have to be there all the time, anytime that the business is needed. I don't care what anyone wants to tell you. Those that don't do it can't achieve certain success. And if they do, they can't keep it. So to sustain that, people have to do things. And you compromise. I work late. I work very early. I can get up at 4 in the morning and work. I can go to bed late till 1 o'clock in the morning. I sleep 3 hours or 4 hours tops. So that's my life, how I manage things that I can't do at work, that I have to do for the job, but I have to do it at home, or I have to do it in my office. Those are things that I do. There are things that I have to have business meetings that are, if I'm trying to work with the manufacturer and they want to have a dinner at night, I have to be at dinner there. Now in my life, I've changed things to make it better over the time. I used to have at the Mandarin Oriental breakfast with people. So I would schedule a 6 a.m., a 7:15, and then a 9 o'clock. And then I have 3 different meetings that I knock out in the morning. That's
I actually remember that.
Yeah.
I remember you doing that.
Yeah. And that's the way that I would knock it out. So then, somebody sees me coming into work, then at 10 o'clock, 10:15, look how late he gets up. No, I was already my first meeting at 6 a.m. And then there's always people who are very early. It's a book, the 5 a.m. club. Yeah. And I love seeing sunrises. Very few sunrises have I missed in my life. And,
So, Mario, you said something that I want to bring it back. You said that you felt that it was a blessing that you grew up very quickly when you were a little boy. And one of the questions that I had when you said that was, when it came to your boys, did you want them to grow up very quickly? Did you want
no, no,
them to, or did you want to shelter them from the experiences that you had? I always wonder this because I've experienced that as well. There were certain challenges and obstacles I had growing up that I see my kids don't have because I've been able to give them a life that's different than mine. And sometimes I question,
sure.
do they are they at a disadvantage for not having the struggles that we had when we were younger, albeit different? But I'm curious now that you have older men, what your stance is on that.
So I have to go back and say, by the grace of God, grace of my wife, grace of our family, we have two incredible sons.
Mm.
And every once in a while, if I may get upset about something or disappointed about something, I have to take a step back and say, these are two incredible men.
Mm.
I'm very proud of who they are as men. I'm very proud of how their upbringing. I'm very proud of that they truly live the Jesuit way of men for others, how they care for their friends, how they care for their wives, how they care for their children, my grandchildren. Uh, when you take a step back and you look and you're quiet and you just observe your children and you see them be parents and you see them how they take care of their kids and how they plan their life, I'm in awe. I'm in awe. All the things you think they didn't pay attention to, they paid really good attention. All the things that I've shared with them over the past, I said to them, look, there's no book that teaches you how to be a parent. None. So the things you see your parents do well that you like, you emulate them. You copy them. The things you think you can improve, you improve on them. I call that progress. And that's good because you learn how to figure it out, that this will work better. I think if I miss certain things and I wasn't there for them, I apologize. And I'm genuine about that. And I think those are lessons for them to not miss certain things with their kids also if they want, and they've done better there. The challenge that you posed earlier on in the question was, the struggles that we have, your intentional purpose, your husband's intentional purpose, mine, my family's, is to provide for our kids a better life. So you can't be mad at that. What you have to do is be careful in that better life you want to give them, that they have it in a better way. I believe the most important thing I can give my sons, or I can give anyone, but really my sons, is intentional purpose to learn, but unconditional love. When you give someone unconditional love, you accept them at every stage, at every aspect. And when a kid knows that, from there, the inertia awakens and incredible things can happen.
Mm.
And I think that's what I've worked hard to do with them.
It sounds like you also believe in that self-driven
Yeah.
path.
What I think I need to be supportive of whatever their choices are in that aspect.
Mm.
What I may like is one thing, but what's right and it's good for them is that if they want to be part of it, great. But if they don't want, that's okay too.
Yeah. So now that you are in this chapter of your life, what are you doing to be intentional with your family, with your own personal life, in a separate from business? How would you say that you're being intentional these days?
I will tell you that being a grandparent is different. It's a second opportunity. What a better way to say it to you that way. Though they're very busy, I have two incredible daughter-in-laws that do a phenomenal job in raising the kids. So my grandkids are so much more advanced than my kids were at those ages. Part is how society is today, but part is really the intention of the mothers of teaching them, of working with them one-on-one and doing things that we didn't do. So I try to spend, if I get to see them on a Sunday, I love doing that. If I get to, have them come over, I enjoy that. If I have the chance to go see them, I want to do it. Sometimes they're doing things where there are different things that we aren't able to do it, but we see the kids, at least I do, at least 2 times a month, 3 times a month that I have. Sometimes if I get to go, I love when my son invites me to come over for dinner or come over for lunch. I don't miss that. I want to make every one of those and not miss that opportunity, because it's an opportunity that'll be fewer and fewer in life on it. And at the end of the day, seeing how they plan. So today it's really special to hear your children thinking about the future for their kids, the future about their lives, how they're planning some things. And it's very gratifying that they're thoughtful about it, that they're thinking about it, and that they're planning and working towards it.
All right. So, last question.
Sure.
You know that I love to talk about finding bliss in your life. What would you say is the thing that brings you the most bliss in your life?
You're going to be surprised at this. I love people being successful. I love seeing people grow. I have had more joy in my life of seeing you buy your first apartment or buy your first home. I've had more joy seeing being invited to an employee that started with me, that got married, that had a child, and I go to the kid's graduation. I've been very blessed to go to their wedding. I've been very blessed to see this, because it says that I did okay. I played a role in their life in a better way. I helped them grow, and remembering them where they're at. Kind of when you said to me earlier on how you put the pictures of your family, that's my picture. And we all have a role in life that we forget that we need communities. We need to be part of a community. We need to be part of the fabric of that community. I try to do that in different ways also. I serve a hospital that I worked for and did things for many, many years, Nicholas Children's Hospital. I was blessed. My kids were always healthy, but I saw many that were not. So if I could help a little bit there, a little bit of my talent, a little bit of my treasure, that's the way I did that. If I was able to go help Miami-Dade, or I was able to go help FIU, I did that. If I'm able to help St. Thomas, I did that. If it's Camilla's house, I did that. If it's, cancer, the American Cancer Society, if it was, other things that I felt that were important, that's the way I did. And that gave me fulfillment.
It's like a true entrepreneur when bliss is watching someone go through their own entrepreneur journey.
It is.
That's like how that's your, like there's nothing that brings me more joy than to see people in their own personal development journey, their own personal development growth. And I'm a super nerd about it, right? Like I want to read all the books. And then I want to talk to people about it. And these conversations, like nothing brings me more joy than these kind of things.
Thank you.
Thank you. I was born to do this work, and it sounds like you were born to be an entrepreneur and help people rise as a result of their own personal entrepreneurship journey.
And I think there's a lot of people out there that are doing that too. I think there's more than that we don't know. There's more that are always quiet. I always tell folks, look, you have 2 years for a reason. Listen more than when you talk. But you are the master of your energy and activities. So be active, be involved, make an action so there's a reaction.
I love that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mario. This was so wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you for being part of my journey.
Gracias.
That's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for being here. It means the absolute world to me. Now, if this show helps you live with a little more intention and you love it, the best way to support it is by following wherever you listen and leaving a rating or a review. That is how new listeners can find us, and it helps more than you can imagine. So until next time, keep noticing the sparks of bliss in your life. Bye for now.